Welcome to our County to County program, our webinar on phone banking. And we feel that this is really one of the most successful ways to make contact with voters. So it's going to be one of the most important things that you can do. And my name is Julie Tomkovick. I am a county precinct chair here in Orange County, and I've been working with the County to County Trainings Project since January. And seated next to me is LaManda Pryor.
Hi, I'm LaManda Pryor, and I'm currently from the Durham County area in North Carolina. I serve with the Durham Democratic Women. I'm also the co-precinct chairman of my precinct in Durham. I have been with the C2C almost 1 year now, working with the project.
Time flies. And monitoring our chat room today, we have Jenny McMillan, who will be able to answer many of your questions. On backup support, we have Lee Franklin. We also have in the room Tim and Kelly and Andrea, because it really does take a village to make these projects work. So great thanks to all of them. Again, we're introducing where the chat room is. Because everyone else's microphones are muted, we won't necessarily be able to take in questions immediately as they come, but we have a couple times where we will be stopping for questions. So we asked people when they first came in if they would type in their name and their county. If you move your mouse around, you're either going to see a little green bubble that looks like a little cartoon chat bubble, or you're going to see a spot where there are 3 dots. And if you click there, you'll find the chat room. When you type in your message at the bottom and then hit enter, everyone will see your message, and they'll also be able to see replies to it. And as I said, we will stop a couple times and be able to take questions as in the middle of this as well as in the end. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us for today. We've got 2 sections to this. One is the phone banking that's aimed a little bit more to help out our coordinators who are setting up phone banks. And then another one that's aimed a little bit more directly for volunteers who will be participants. Oops. As I said, we will be answering questions all throughout. A little bit on our intro. LaManda, you want to run us through our agenda?
Okay. What we'll be doing today is we're going to do the welcome, a little introduction to what phone banking is, so you can understand exactly what phone banking does and how we use it. We will go through some initial planning, go through some follow-up planning, and then how to train volunteers, and then some training follow-up. And again, if you have any questions along the way, please make sure you put it in the chat room so we can respond to the chat.
We do make a point that phone banks are planned, and so it's not something that happens randomly or impromptu. Part of that is to make sure that there's a strong objective for the phone banking, and because the information for our voters, we respect the privacy, and so there's not going to be an unauthorized phone bank. So just a little note on that.
Now, while we phone bank, you know, phone banking is one of the leading grassroots efforts that you do. So we phone bank for different reasons. Phone bank to recruit volunteers. You phone bank to determine voters' views. Sometimes you want to inform voters about a particular election or a particular critical issue that's coming up. We phone bank also to update voters' information. We try to encourage voters for a particular candidate's issue, and just encourage attendance at a particular event. So phone banking has different reasons, And it's very important to note the reason. So while you're phone banking, so while you're on the phone, you can really stay focused on what the purpose is.
Okay, thanks. And LaManda, I'm going to ask if you could look at your camera for a second, make sure that that's set. Excellent. All right, so for all of our phone bankers and for captains, a lot of your planning begins in that 2 to 3 week stage before the phone bank is going to occur. And one of the primary things you're going to do is to make sure that you have a very strong and determined need. And everyone knows why you're phone banking. Are you doing it to raise volunteers? Are you trying to raise awareness for the candidate? Are you trying to raise awareness about an issue that a candidate is promoting or fighting? And you're going to look at what is the time frame for the phone bank so that everything can be taken care of in advance of the phone bank, and then to make sure that you have scheduled the phone bank so that it's going to be most effective for the campaign or for the election or for the issue or, again, whatever your need is.
And then next, make sure you secure a location. A location is very important, and securing that at that time will make it a lot easier when you are recruiting your volunteers so they know where to go. And then schedule a session. Make sure you get the scheduled dates and times coordinated. Make sure you coordinate it with the place that you're trying to, the location you're trying to secure. So this is the information that you can relay when it's time for you to recruit volunteers.
Okay, and then work with your county or your campaign to be able to recruit volunteers. Where you can find volunteers are going to be people who have already volunteered in the past with the county, or when you are registering voters or you're having a voter volunteer event. These are good places to find people who are, when you know someone is interested in a particular issue too, that's also a good time to be able to recruit volunteers.
And then once you recruit your volunteers, of course, notify them of the date, time, and the location and the place where you're going to be. Again, that's why it's very important to secure those things before you even start to recruit.
When you, one of the key things you're going to do is to identify your data entry volunteers. You want to make sure that if you're working with call sheets and you're collecting the information correctly, you want to make sure that there's someone who can take that information and get it back into the system. We're really doing everyone a disservice if we gather their information or we update and correct information on an address or a phone or an email address, and then we don't get it back into Vote Builder.
We do have a question that's in the chat room on why do volunteers need to be at the physical location? And if you look over in your chat room, we do have someone that's answering that for you. But also throughout this presentation, you would understand why it's important for all the volunteers to be in one physical location when working on one particular phone banking. So hopefully between the response on the chat room and within this presentation, this particular answer will become very clear to you.
We put in a lot of effort into designing a phone script. Typically, it is going to be fairly short. It's going to be on a specific topic. Remember, people are very busy, and we're just happy that they answer the phone. So we're going to get to the point relatively quickly and try to get a yes or no answer or a commitment that they are going to vote, or they're going to vote for a certain candidate, or they're going to be able to attend a certain event. But it's definitely worthwhile spending time designing the script. And we do have some sample scripts that we can offer for folks so that you can use for your own phone banking.
Another important step is to contact the data team to define your call list, because your purpose for the phone banking is really going to determine who you want to be on the phone when you're calling. This information is given to you from your data team. So make sure that you contact them when you're trying to define your call list for your phone bank.
Okay, one of the fun parts, and it may seem small, but it's not if you're attending a phone bank, is to make sure you've got someone who is going to provide the snacks and the drinks for everyone who's there. Everyone is volunteering their own time, and so we want to make sure that they feel refreshed and replenished and welcome, and that we appreciate their works. And one way to do that is to feed and water your volunteers.
I always tell Julie, chocolate is the most important thing to have when we're doing phone banks. And then you're going to prepare a reference sheet. It's important for them to be able to fill this particular sheet out as they are actually making calls. Familiarize yourself with the election particulars. It's important that as a phone banker that you are pretty much knowledgeable on some of the particulars that you are calling about, or the upcoming election, or what's just going on as you are phone banking. Because remember, you are speaking with people over the phone who cannot see you. So your voice becomes like what they see. So how you sound on the phone, how confident you are becomes very important. So it's important when you familiarize yourself with those materials that you come over just a little confident.
Absolutely. And because the election specifics are going to change from election to election and candidate to candidate, I really want to emphasize how you may have some volunteers who either have some transportation issues or the location that you're at has limited parking. And so potentially it might be helpful to have volunteer transportation, someone in a van who can pick people up and gather them all together in the same location.
The next thing, this is an important step. You may have to arrange to borrow cell phones. Make sure you do that ahead of time. If you are using mobile devices, make sure that you arrange to borrow the number of cell phones that you would need for your volunteers.
And I'm going to put in a little note, just because I had an experience with this. Oftentimes people will be bringing their own cell phones. That's great. If you do have cell phones that you're borrowing, or maybe some that the county owns, make sure that they are charged up. If they're brand new, make sure that they've been set up correctly and that you've gone through the authorization. Please don't be trying to do that the night or the day of the phone bank. Or you will be banging your head against tables, and we don't want that. And then the other small note is just to make sure you've gathered pens and pencils and papers and just kind of other supplies like that that you might need.
Just to wrap up this particular section, remember to determine your need for the particular phone bank, recruit your volunteers, identify your data entry volunteers, design the script, and contact the data team to define your call list, and familiarize yourself with election specifics. These are just some key steps you need to do 2 to 3 weeks before the actual phone bank. And it's important to do those things ahead of time so you can be prepared when it is time to do the actual phone bank.
Absolutely. All right, now you've gotten to the point where it's just a couple days before the phone bank. So what are you going to do? You're going to send out some reminders. Make sure that all the people who have given you a commitment get a little reminder that the event is coming up. And it might be an opportunity if you get a note back, maybe a couple of people have dropped out or something has come up, to see if this might be an opportunity to recruit a few more phone bankers.
Again, verify the data call list. This is just another checkpoint. Sorry, you've already organized it 2 to 3 weeks. Now, a few days out, go back and make sure that you verify the data call list, and then get confirmed commitments from your volunteers. It's important to go ahead and get them to say, yes, I will be there. So you would know if you need to use some of those additional phone bankers that you have already recruited.
All right, this is the opportunity to review your script, make sure that it still meets the desired intent. Let's say the purpose of the phone bank is to gather new volunteers for your organization or your candidate, and to have them all have a chance to meet the candidate, perhaps. All right. Well, if the location has changed, or the timing has changed, or anything with that, this is your opportunity to say, let's go ahead and make sure and just verify that everything that we thought was true when we wrote this is still true today.
And then make sure you have copies. Make copies of all materials. Go back and double check the availability of the location. This is very important because we know sometimes when you think you have a reservation, some type of miscommunication happens, and then you go to the phone bank and you can't get in. So this is a good time to just double check the site availability, and then remind whoever it is about bringing the snacks. So really, it's like a few days before, it's kind of like a big checklist. And so you're just going back through things, making sure that everything is like it's supposed to be.
Absolutely. And if you are working with shared transportation, this is your opportunity, again, to double check on the names and the addresses that you are giving to your drivers, so that they're going to the appropriate places. Make sure that you have the opportunity to provide some backup cell phones. And if you're going to have backup cell phones, also have chargers. You don't want to be in a room full of people who are all ready to go, and again, the juice is just not in the phone.
Updates the list of resource people, and use a checklist for materials. Again, it's all about just being prepared when you are hosting a phone bank. Yeah.
And LaManda was kind of laughing a little bit on the checking your site, because we had a look at the opportunity once when the two of us were working on a project. And I went by to just view to make sure that the room was adequate for what we needed. And it was a good thing, because even though we had talked to someone several weeks in advance, we were not on the schedule. So because we had taken the extra time to double check, we made sure we got on the schedule before the event occurred. Yay.
Important step. So again, just going back over a few important points that you do a few days before. Verify the data call list with the data team.
Review your script, make sure it still meets the desired intent.
Give names and addresses to the drivers. And again, this is only if you're using someone to transport them. This might not be a step that you need, but if you are using someone to pick others up, to bring them to the location, make sure you give them the names and addresses to the driver.
Make sure you update your list of resource persons and their phone numbers. Oops. So some of the resource materials that we're sending along with the PowerPoint include kind of a checklist of things, and these items are on there. It's just a really handy thing to be able to follow and to make sure that you have the opportunity to have a successful phone bank. All right.
Okay. Now you've done your 2 to 3 week planning. You've done your few days out checklist, and you have everything ready to go. And it is the actual day of the phone banking. What do we do, Julie?
All right. So we get to review our purpose and target population for the phone bank event. And for the folks in the room, we want to make sure that we are going to be setting expectations of how many phone calls do we expect people to be able to get through in an hour or for the evening, looking at the number of phone bankers that you have.
And we know setting expectations, these are people who are volunteering, and so we don't want them to get panicky or I'm not going to meet the expectation. But having expectations just make people stay focused, kind of have an idea of what they're supposed to be doing, and we all have a common goal. So setting those expectations is not to make anyone nervous, but it's just to make sure that we stay focused on what we're there for. Again, review the script and then answer any questions that people in the room may have. Review the call sheet.
Mm-hmm. And we'll have an opportunity to look at a call sheet in this webinar, but for your volunteers that evening, it's a great opportunity to make sure everybody understands what information is available to them and what information that they're being asked to track or to update or to find yes or no answers for.
Because one thing to remember, your volunteers are going to have a wide range of experiences. You're going to have some that's been phone banking forever, and some this may be their first time. So it's very important that you go back through those things, even with those experienced phone bankers, so everyone is on the same page when it comes to understanding what this phone bank is for, and answering all questions before we actually start. And as Julie was saying, you review the call sheet, share resource materials, let the new volunteers practice with relevant role play with situations. This is the time for them, maybe before they get on the phone, to kind of pair up with the one who's been phone banking for a while and go through some scripts, go through all their questions so they can become more comfortable with actual doing the phone banking and what to say once they get on the line.
Absolutely. Especially for folks who are new. There's something about phone banking. We know, those of us who have done this a lot, that this is one of the most effective. It's part of that person-to-person contact. But if you've never done it before, it seems a little awkward because it breaks the social norm, right? None of us in our own lives typically call people who are strangers to us and ask them if they would do something that's important. And so getting people to realize that that's not what they're doing. They're not just calling strangers. We are all together working because we have a shared goal and a shared purpose, and they're talking to people who are fellow Democrats or who are leaning indies who are leaning as Democrats. And so that's the common bond that we're all joining together on, and the common goal that we're working on.
So it's important that before they get on the phone to just kind of role play so they can get comfortable and just make sure that everyone has a chance to ask their questions and be ready for when it's time to actually do the phone banking.
Yep. And really, if you want your volunteers to come back, thanking them is one of the most important things that you can do. But yeah, getting that feedback. If somebody had an issue, how can it, be dealt with at another phone bank so it doesn't come up again? And take your little time to analyze and summarize your results. Some of that will be numerical that you'll be reporting back, but this is also your opportunity, to say, as the leader of the phone bank, where you say, that Julie, she tries really hard, but maybe we want to pair her with another experienced phone banker the next time she comes back. Whereas LaManda, God, every time she asks someone to come to an event, they say yes. So every time we were to go to the next phone bank, we want her there.
Again, we were talking about things that you do right after the phone banking event, like that night of, as Julie was talking about. The more you can do right after the phone bank ends, the more information you can receive and the more better you can prepare for the next phone bank. But write a call. Thank you for people who let you use the location, because you probably want to go back there again. So this is a good practice to make sure that you write them, call them, let them know that you appreciate them letting you use the space. Contact your county leaders to discuss anything. Remember, again, phone banking is not done in isolation. So it's very important that we contact the county leaders.
Mm-hmm. And all of our data entry folks will emphasize again that you've been working with the call sheets, you've collected the information. Please make sure that that gets to the correct data entry volunteers, whether it's within your county or if you're part of the county-to-county project you're working on with the campaign. Specifically, we want to make sure that that information gets entered back into where it needs to be. All right. Do we have any questions that Jenny has not answered for you? We're going to give you a minute or two.
I want to invite you all to check out the chat room because there are some good information being posted there. So if you get a moment, just look at the chat room because people are sharing great information that you can use in your county when you're organizing phone banking.
I will say, because we all, and I'm giving you a little time to think of your questions, but one of the most fun phone banks that I was a part of have had to do with specific candidates. And I can remember making a series of calls for a candidate who was running for a city council position. And I'm talking to someone who's very young, and she's saying, yeah, I'll be there, I'll do that. And I can tell that she's in a bit of a hurry, so I'm making it quick. And so finally she says, okay, I've got a test to take tomorrow. I promise you, I will vote for this candidate. I will be there. I will go to the early voting. And I got to say, yes, great, thanks, and good luck on your test. So you take your lead a little bit from the person you're talking to, and you can adjust a little bit as you need to. Any new questions? All righty. Okay, so now we have the section 2. This is for training for volunteers, and it has a little bit more to do with individual phone bankers. So a couple of things for the agenda is that we'll be doing a bit of an introduction. What do you need to know? If you are doing a training section, you're going to stop and make sure you have a chance for your people to practice skills, and then for them to do a bit of a question and answer.
Okay, just going over the agenda for this particular part. Of course, we're going to do some introductions, and then when you're training, this is how you are going to actually train the volunteers. So you can actually use this agenda that we have when you are training your volunteers. So it will introductions, an agenda, do some housekeeping things, and then you start off with why we phone bank. So this is like an actual agenda of how you can start when you are beginning to actually train your volunteers.
And we had an opportunity to do that, I know, with my precinct recently. And so it's preparing and training people in advance of a phone bank can be really valuable. Okay, so experience, what do you need to know? Well, they're going to need to know the purpose of the script, have the sample script in front of them, and a chance to practice it. They'll need to have any reference materials involving that particular phone bank, whether it's for a candidate or you're inviting people to come to a particular volunteer event. What will be the number of expected calls? That will vary a little bit depending on the length of the script. But you'll see in some of the reference material we're sending you, you'll have some numbers to work with there. And then what kind of, to go over the documentation, the call sheet, how do they fill that out correctly? As LaManda has pointed out to me many times, one of the most important things people can do in terms of filling out their call sheet is to use readable handwriting, right? Because there's another human being who's following you who is going to need to know what you wrote and what you meant.
Okay, then you have new volunteers. What they need to know, how to use the script and how to complete a call sheet. Of course, when you're training your volunteers, it's important to understand, again, you're either going to be training some experienced phone bankers, or you're going to be training some new volunteers, or you're going to have a mixture. So these are just a few things that you need to know once you're running your own training for your volunteers.
Absolutely. And it's noted on the call sheet, but I'd like to point out to everybody that one of the things you will be expected to do is to put your name at the top of all the call sheets. And that means if somebody has a question about what you wrote later, they can follow up with that particular volunteer and hopefully clarify and get some more information.
Yeah. Now, it's always important during your training of volunteers to have opportunities for them to practice. The more they get a chance to practice, the more comfortable they become with actually doing a phone banking. So put that time inside of your training. Make that part of your training. Your training should include them actually walking through samples and role playing. So your option A could be practice with a script, and then you give some feedback. And so the trainers or the volunteers will get a chance to look at a script, and then you give them some feedback. Or option B, observe an experienced phone banker. This is very important. I found that when I was first in a training, and I was trained with people who had been phone banking forever. And of course I was scared because I didn't know what to expect. So I was like, let me just see someone do it. so I got a chance to observe the experienced phone banker, just kind of go through, and then I also sat with them when they were actually making the calls. But we also got a chance to do that during our role play. So that helped me to hear and learn from an actual experienced phone banker. And I actually did that for a couple of times when we went live. So you can do it either way.
And I think for a new person coming in, it makes it so much less scary if they have an opportunity to partner with an experienced phone banker for the first couple of calls, especially, and they can see how well it goes, and oftentimes that will just alleviate a lot of fears right then by seeing someone else do it successfully and pleasantly, and everyone's happy.
And may I add, sometimes you might not have to do option A or B. You may do a combination of both. Mm-hmm. You could do a time where they practice with the script while they're in training and they observe experienced phone banker. And then actually you can have them when it's time to actually do the phone bank to actually sit, as Julie was saying, with an experienced phone banker. So it's not an either or, do I have to decide one or the other. You really do what you believe will make your volunteers comfortable during that training.
All right, we keep referring to the call sheet. This is what one looks like. Don't, first of all, not to worry, none of this is real data from real people. We would not do that. But it gives you an opportunity to see what kinds of information is available. And, so it's not simply someone's name or what party they're registered with or their address, but also their email address. And this is an opportunity when you are talking with someone to be able to double check or correct or verify a lot of the existing information. I'm going to go through a little bit what the results column is. So maybe you're calling and someone simply is at home, or your script might allow or not. Gives you an opportunity to note if that individual has moved. You found someone who answered the phone, but they've told you, for example, that Mark Sullivan no longer lives there. So you can note that. The next one is to note whether someone that you're trying to reach has in fact died. And so that's a note for deceased. Or maybe the next one is turns out to be a wrong number. Or was it a disconnected phone? Are you talking into a family where it's primarily a Spanish speaker? Did you call and the number was simply busy? The last one is refused. Refused doesn't mean that, the reason I'm going through all this is refused does not mean that somebody wasn't home or that they were busy that evening and they couldn't talk to you. Or you asked them some question about if they wanted to volunteer and they said no. Refused is for the rarer phone call where you're talking to someone who really does not want to talk to you, and you're going to mark refused because they don't want to talk to any Democrat and they no longer really want to be associated or contacted by the party. The only time that I have used it recently on a call was into a county where one of the people, the only person I called the entire evening, and as soon as I said, I am with this county Democratic Party, and this person I was speaking said, I do not want to talk to you. All right, thank you so much. You have a lovely rest of your evening. And so you end it pleasantly, and then you mark refused. Okay, that's where that would be appropriate.
And again, you see on the call sheet, it's very limited space. So it's very important that people write as legible as they can. So when you give the sheets to the data entry person, they can fairly understand what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. And not necessarily all of them are going to say attend a precinct meeting, but maybe there's a volunteer event coming up that you've talked about. And so that could be a yes or no. Or maybe it's about a meet the candidate event where there could be a yes or no. A lot of these can be kind of customized for the reason that you're calling. But we do try to ask every time we call, for regardless of what the reason, we do try to put in a question at the end on, are you willing to be a volunteer for either this candidate or for your county party, or for me, it would be for the county to county project. So if you ever, don't ever bypass the opportunity to ask another individual to volunteer, that's my point. And part of the reason why I find that it's important is you're not only fulfilling a need for your party or your candidate or your county, but you're helping that individual connect to other individuals and helping them find a way to act on their beliefs and act on their values beyond just simply voting. Okay, so you may really be offering them an opportunity.
All right, do we have any questions here? I know we said a lot in between and took some extra time on the call sheet, but do we have any questions?
Someone had asked about attachments, and want to confirm that people have received attachments. If you haven't received any attachments, I think on your, go back and look at your, I'm sorry, I'm phrasing this incorrectly. Please go back and look at your invitation to this event, and you will see a series of links. Those links will take you to the documents that you would like to see. The reason why we did that is because we wanted to include the PowerPoint itself, and it's such a large document that it was getting in the way. If you click on all of the links from your original invitation, you're going to find some fabulous information, right? And please let us know if you try to open any of those and it doesn't get you to the document you want. Okay, when are the virtual phone banks coming? Dun, 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 dun. Question that a lot of people have asked, and there's some things that are in progress right now, but it's not necessarily a statewide system right now that's ready. And so as information is coming out, that will be shared with candidates and with county officers, but it's not something that I can give you a firm deadline on, as much as I know a lot of data folks out there, and certainly the data folks that I talk to are like chomping at the bit, all right? And there are different test projects that are out there, and there are certain candidates and campaigns that are working with this currently, but I can't tell you when there's going to be a rollout state. Anything else? Anything that you wanted to add, LaManda, as a last set of encouraging words, or?
Just remember to type into your chat pod. Not only type, just get a chance to go over there and view the chat room. There's a lot of great information coming from others other than who's in this room. So make sure you are checking out the chat pod. Make sure you give us information on what did work well for you today, what some things you have some additional questions on, and what ways we can improve. We're always trying to improve this particular training or something we should include. We're interested in your feedback.
Absolutely. We are going to give you a few moments to give us a little feedback today. You're also going to get a little bit more of a substantial bit of a survey coming up, so you can be on the lookout for that. But I want you, to keep in mind that we do have a few more other seminars coming up. I'm sorry. We do have a few other seminars coming up, And so to be on the lookout. The very next seminars that are coming up will be Saturday, July 14th on canvassing.
Hi, this is Julie again, just stepping in. The information they were about to give were on webinars that have already passed. We have, however, set up a new series of webinars for the fall. And here is the information if you want to sign up for anything. We will have some more webinars, including ones on for county leaders for voter rights and voter protection, how to protect your people at the polls. We will have some more on some of the new digital tools that are coming up and are available, including some of the predictive dialers that take people away from the paper system for phone banking, some of the minivans, which again can take you away from the paper system for doing canvassing. There's a new software they're using, Hustle, that helps to get some of our information out as text messages to some of our voters. So we've got a lot of great information still coming up in webinars between now and Election Day. If you have questions or you want to make sure that you have the sign-up sheets for the fall series, you can drop us a message at c2ctrainings@orangedems.com. Again, as you see on this slide, it's c2ctrainings@orangedems.com. Thanks again for joining us today, and hope to see you again. If you have questions or if, as you're listening to this, if you were not a part of the original series and you do need us to send you some of the backup materials, again, drop an email to that C2C Trainings email address, and we can send you either the links for the chat room or some of the documents that can accompany this webinar when it was done originally. Thanks, and wishing us all great success in November. Bye.